Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at something pretty heavy, societal trauma and how it affects our health. But, don't worry. We're going to do what we always do here at the deep dive. We're going to go beyond simply, defining the problem and explore some fascinating research and some real life examples that hopefully give us some practical approaches to healing and building, authentic wellness. And it's funny. One of the things I found so interesting in preparing for this deep dive is how even just these like small little annoyances, like just even hearing like ice clinking in a glass can actually be these potent triggers that can really affect how we act and what we do.
Yeah, it's amazing how subtly but profoundly our environment really shapes us, you know? And that brings us to the broader concept of what we call, behavioral triggers. And a behavioral trigger is basically anything that affects our actions, right? And they're so varied, they can be direct, like when you pull your hand away from a hot stove, or they can be indirect, like a song that evokes a memory. And then that memory, ends up changing your mood. And some of these triggers, they come from within us, like our thoughts and feelings. But some of them they come from our surroundings, And here's the thing, a lot of times we're not even aware of how they're affecting us.
So you're saying we're basically reacting to these things all the time without even really realizing it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where this all becomes really interesting, especially as it relates to societal trauma. Just imagine yourself constantly being exposed to these negative triggers, like a toxic workplace culture,
Yeah.
or the constant pressure to win, to win at all costs, or even just like the never-ending, cycle of negative news. It's really no wonder that so many of us feel depleted and we struggle with our well-being.
Yeah. I hear you. It's almost like our environment is almost like this giant triggering machine, right?
Yeah.
Just wearing us down over time.
You can think of it that way. And actually, there's research, showing that exposure to chronic stress, which is often a result of societal trauma, actually increases our risk for a range of, different health problems, like, things
Wow.
like heart disease, depression, and even, a weakened immune system.
Wow. So this isn't just about, feeling stressed out. This is about real measurable impacts on our physical health.
Absolutely. And to kind of illustrate how much our environment can really affect our behavior. There's the story of Jackie, right? And Jackie was a lawyer, and she found herself in this situation where she had to negotiate with a friend who was departing a business venture with her, and they had to negotiate over a small amount of money. And Jackie was incredibly ruthless in this negotiation. It was really out of character for her, honestly. And she later admitted that her behavior was really a direct result of the just cutthroat environment that she had to deal with every day at her firm. It's almost like her workplace had become this negative trigger, and it was influencing how she acted even outside of work.
That's such a powerful example of how these societal pressures, they can really shape us, sometimes without us even realizing it. But
Yeah.
but is there anything we can do about it? I mean,
Yeah.
are we just at the mercy of all these external forces?
Well, not entirely. I mean, we can't always, control our environment, right? But we can learn to control how we respond to it. But to do that effectively, we really need to understand this key concept called ego depletion.
Okay, ego depletion.
Yeah, ego depletion. And ego depletion basically refers to this idea that our willpower and our self-control are actually limited resources. It's almost like a muscle that gets tired after overuse.
So you're saying like the more decisions we make, the more stressful situations we have to deal with, the harder it gets to make those good choices and resist those unhealthy impulses, right?
Exactly, exactly. And there's this really fascinating research, to back this up. One particular study looked at the Israeli parole board, and what they found was that prisoners who appeared before the parole board later in the day actually had a much lower chance of being granted parole than those who appeared earlier in the day.
Wow, that's kind of unsettling. So are you saying that their fate was basically decided by how tired the parole board was?
Well, the researchers believe that this phenomenon called decision fatigue played a major role in those outcomes. As those board members made more and more decisions throughout the day, their mental resources became depleted, and that led to less favorable outcomes for the prisoners who appeared later.
So if even experienced professionals like judges are susceptible to this, imagine how much more vulnerable the average person is, especially given, all of the societal stressors that we're constantly dealing with.
Yeah, and it's a valid concern. And this is, one of the reasons why recognizing ego depletion is so important. It highlights the need for, strategies to help us manage our energy better and make conscious choices even when we're feeling, depleted.
Okay, so we've talked about triggers, we've talked about ego depletion, and it all feels a little bit heavy right now. But I know you've got some practical advice for us. So what can we actually do to combat this depletion and start building that authentic well-being in what feels like such a demanding world?
Well, the good news is that we can develop tools and strategies to mitigate the impact of all these societal stressors.
And that's what we're going to explore next.
Precisely. We'll delve into some practical solutions, things like structuring our day, seeking support, and aligning our actions with our values. And these are powerful ways to reclaim our energy and build, a more resilient and fulfilling life.
So you mentioned things like structuring our day and aligning our actions with our values. What does that look like in practice?
Well, one surprisingly effective technique is something called hourly questions throughout your day. And it's basically a way to increase your self-awareness and help you make more conscious choices even when you're feeling, really stressed or overwhelmed.
Okay, hourly questions, huh?
Yeah.
That sounds interesting. So how does that work?
Well, think back to that story of Griffin and the clinking ice cubes. You remember how much that sound of his wife swirling ice in her glass, how much that just annoyed him. Well, the Griffin, he really wanted to be a better husband, and so he decided to start asking himself this question every hour. Did I do my best to be patient and kind to my wife even when that sound was bothering me?
So instead of just like reacting to that trigger, he used that hourly question to kind of create a pause and make a conscious choice about how he wanted to respond.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And you know what? The results were pretty amazing. By consistently asking himself that question, he actually desensitized himself to that sound. Like what was once this major annoyance just became a non-issue. And you know what? More importantly, his relationship with his wife improved.
Wow, that's a great example of how just like a simple shift in perspective
Sure.
can have, really big impact. But what kinds of questions should we be asking ourselves? I mean, did I do my best to that seems kind of vague.
Well, yeah, it's important to really tailor those questions to your own, specific goals and your values. Like for instance, you could ask yourself, did I take a break today to recharge, or did I communicate my needs clearly, or did I prioritize my well-being, or did I act with integrity?
Okay, I see. So it's about connecting those questions back to what's truly important to us and then using them as like a guide throughout the day.
Yeah, yeah, and this idea of structure, it isn't just about hourly questions, right? Remember Emily R. and her journey to lose weight?
Yeah. The one who did like the 60-day juice cleanse. Man, that was intense.
No, she succeeded because she had this clear structure in place. She used this system of what we call daily questions, kind of similar to the hourly questions, right? To track her progress and stay accountable. And she had the support of a coach, right? And in her case, her coach was her uncle. And she would actually call him every night to report her scores.
That's a good point. Having that external support can really make such a difference. It's like having someone in your corner, cheering you on and keeping you accountable. And I imagine in the context of societal trauma, having that support system can be even more crucial.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Processing those difficult experiences, especially when they stem from these societal issues, it can feel incredibly isolating. And having a therapist or a mentor or just, even a trusted friend to talk to, it can make a huge difference in navigating those challenges and building resilience.
It's like having a safe space,
Yeah.
right, to process those heavy emotions and find healthy ways to cope. But sometimes, even with support, it feels like we're just trying to survive,
Yeah.
just make things good enough. Is that enough?
That's a really great question. The problem with the good enough mindset is that it can keep us, stuck in this cycle of just getting by. It prevents us from reaching our full potential and living a truly fulfilling life.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. But isn't striving for excellence all the time exhausting? I mean, shouldn't we embrace good enough sometimes?
Well, there's a balance to be struck for sure. It's not about being perfect, right? Or pushing ourselves to the point of burnout. It's about being intentional. It's about making conscious choices about where we want to invest our energy. It's about asking ourselves, where am I settling for good enough in my life, and what would it look like to strive for something more?
Okay, so it's less about achieving some external standard of perfection. It's more about aligning our actions with our
Yeah.
values and creating a life that feels authentic and meaningful.
Yeah, and think of Frances Hesselbein.
Hmm.
She dedicated her life to leading the small nonprofit organization, and she was so committed to this work that she even once declined an invitation to the White House because she felt like it would take her away from her true purpose.
Wow, that's a powerful example of someone who was truly living their values. She wasn't swayed by prestige or external validation.
And that's the kind of clarity and commitment that we can all strive for, especially in a world where we're constantly being bombarded with these messages about what success should look like. It's about defining success on our own terms and making choices that reflect what's truly important to us.
So how do we move beyond good enough and start living more intentionally, especially
Yeah.
when we're faced with the weight of all these societal challenges, right? It can feel overwhelming to even know where to begin.
Yeah, it can feel really overwhelming, but it's not about tackling everything at once, right? I mean, even small, consistent changes can make a really big difference over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One really powerful tool for kind of navigating all this complexity is something we call the AI Watt principle.
Okay, the AI Watt principle. What does that stand for?
It stands for, am I willing at this time to make the investment required to make a positive difference on this topic? Oh, okay. I can definitely see the value in that. It's about being mindful of where we direct our energy, especially when it comes to things that we just can't control.
Exactly, exactly. And remember that story of the executive who was just consumed with resentment after his company was sold.
Yeah.
He eventually realized that holding on to all that anger, it was really only hurting him. It wasn't changing the situation, and it was preventing him from moving forward. And so he made a conscious decision to just let it go.
That must have taken, a lot of courage. It's so easy to get caught up in those feelings of injustice or frustration.
Oh, it's totally natural to feel those emotions. But the key is recognizing when they're no longer serving us, and
Yeah.
and choosing to focus our energy on what we can influence.
Yeah, it's about picking our battles wisely and channeling our energy towards creating positive change, whether it's in our personal lives or our communities or the world around us.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a great way to put it. And sometimes, letting go means seeking support.
Yeah.
We often associate asking for help with weakness, but it's actually a sign of strength and self-awareness.
So true. I think back to all the times I've benefited from having a coach or a therapist or even just a trusted friend to talk to. It's so valuable to have someone who can, offer a different perspective or help us process those difficult emotions.
Yeah, especially in the context of societal trauma, having that support system, it can be so crucial for healing and building resilience. It can help us move from feeling isolated and overwhelmed to feeling empowered and connected.
Well, this has been such an insightful deep dive into a really complex and often heavy topic. We covered a lot of ground today, from understanding the impact of societal trauma and EO depletion to exploring practical tools like hourly questions,
Yeah.
and the importance of support systems and the power of letting go.
And ultimately, it's about recognizing that even amidst all the challenges, we have the power to choose how we respond, how we heal, and how we create a life that feels authentic and fulfilling.
Absolutely. So if you could choose one small behavioral change
Mm.
to make today, inspired by what we've talked about today, what would it be? How might that choice kind of ripple out and create a positive change in your life and in the world around you? That's something to ponder. Until next time.